Jim, you need to stop being stubborn and accept reality. His parents died 2 months ago and left nothing but debt. It's time for you to grow up and sell that old house before the situation gets even worse. My wife Jennifer was standing in the kitchen of my parents' house in Boston, gesturing with that manila folder full of papers she had prepared without consulting me. Her red nails glistened as she drummed impatiently on the granite countertop my mother had chosen so carefully 15 years ago. I already talked to my cousin Derek, the real estate agent. He says we can get $450,000 if we put it on the market this week. With the hospital bills and funeral costs, that leaves about $300,000 for us to split. Split. As if she had some legal right to my parents' inheritance. My name is Jim, and at 38 years old, I just found out what my wife really thinks of me. 2 months after burying my parents in a car accident that destroyed my family, Jennifer didn't show a shred of patience for his grief. Instead, she saw only financial opportunities. Jenny, I'm still processing his loss. I can't just sell the house I grew up in like it's some kind of business. Jennifer opened the folder and spread documents across the table. Sales contracts, property appraisals, even detailed spreadsheets of how the money would be used. She had planned all of this while I was still grieving the loss of the only 2 people who ever loved her unconditionally. Look at this, she continued, pointing to numbers highlighted in yellow. With $300,000, we can pay off our credit cards, put a down payment on that new house in Brookline we saw last month, and still have money left over to completely renovate it. Imagine how much better our life will be. Our life. She spoke as if we had built something together, when in fact Jennifer came into my life just as I was beginning to achieve some financial stability. 3 years of marriage that now revealed themselves to be 3 years of cold calculations on her part. I sat in the chair where my father used to read the newspaper every morning, watching Jennifer reorganize the papers with the efficiency of someone who had already made all the decisions. She didn't notice that I was studying her every move, every argument, every selfish justification disguised as concern for our future. And there's something else, Jennifer said, lowering her voice as if to tell me a secret. Derek mentioned that his parents had some debts you couldn't even imagine. Overdue credit card bills, loans. If we don't sell soon, those creditors could foreclose on the property. Lies. My parents were obsessed with financial organization. My father had worked as an accountant for 40 years and my mother as a teacher. They lived well within their means and never had any debts beyond the mortgage on the house, which had been paid off while I was still in college. But Jennifer didn't know that. Just as she didn't know many other things about the true financial situation my parents had left me. Jim, do you trust me or not? She asked in that honeyed voice she used when she wanted to manipulate a situation. We're a team. Husband and wife. What's good for one is good for the other. I nodded slowly, keeping my expression neutral while she smiled triumphantly. Jennifer always underestimated my intelligence, treating me like the simple mechanic who doesn't understand important things like investments and financial planning. What she didn't know was that my parents had told him about the apartment in Dubai 6 months before the accident. It was an investment my father had made discreetly after a successful consulting job for an international company. A luxury apartment in one of the most exclusive towers in the city, completely paid off and registered solely in his name. If you're enjoying this story and want to find out how a seemingly simple mechanic will surprise a greedy wife, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As Jennifer continued to talk about sales schedules and profit sharing, I wondered how long it would take her to realize that she had just revealed her true nature to exactly the wrong person. Over the next 3 days, Jennifer stepped up her campaign to convince me to sell the house. She came home from work on Monday with a stack of real estate flyers, spreading them out on the dining room table as if it were a business presentation. Look at this, Jim, she said, pointing to a colonial house in Brookline. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage. Exactly what we've always dreamed of. Jennifer had mentioned that particular house only once, 2 weeks after my parents' funeral, when I was still processing the loss. At the time, I thought she was trying to cheer me up by talking about the future. Now I realized she was already calculating how to use my inheritance to finance his own desires. And there's more, she continued, pulling out another brochure. Derek said that if we close on the deal this week, the seller is willing to accept a slightly lower offer. $680,000 instead of $710,000. That's a savings of $30,000, Jim. Savings. As if she were doing him a favor by spending money she assumed was his. Jennifer didn't know that I had spent the entire weekend going over all the documents my parents had left behind. Not the edited versions that she had shown me, but the originals I found in the safe that only I knew the combination to. Wills, insurance policies, bank statements, investment portfolios. Everything was meticulously organized and very different from the catastrophic scenario that my wife was painting. "Jenny, I need to ask you something," I said as she sorted the brochures by price. "Where exactly did you get this information about my parents' debts?" She paused for half a second before answering, long enough for me to notice. "Derek has connections in the financial sector. He did some discreet checks when I mentioned our situation." Discreet checks. On people who died 2 months ago. People Derek had never worked for and whose financial information was confidential. The story didn't make sense, but Jennifer was counting on my supposed naivety not to question the details. "And how exactly did Derek get access to my parents' bank information?" Jennifer became slightly irritated, as she always did when someone questioned his logic. "Jim, he's been in real estate for 15 years. He knows how to investigate these things. The technical details aren't important. What matters is that we act quickly before the situation gets worse." On Tuesday, she arrived with Derek in tow. My brother-in-law on Jennifer's side was a 45-year-old man with artificially white teeth and an overly firm handshake. He wore a suit that was too expensive for someone selling middle-class homes and spoke with the confidence of someone accustomed to pressuring vulnerable people. "Jim, man, I'm sorry for her loss," he said as Jennifer made coffee. His parents were special people. "But Jennifer is right, you need to think practically about the future." Derek opened her leather briefcase and took out a professional appraisal of the house. I had one of my appraisers take a discreet look at the property. With the current market, we can easily get $470,000, maybe even $500,000 if we're lucky. A discreet appraisal. They had sent someone to appraise my parents' house without consulting her. The invasion of privacy made me angry, but I kept my expression neutral as Derek continued his presentation. "The location is great, the lot is large, but the house needs some work to reach its maximum price. New paint, floors, maybe update the kitchen. It would be an investment of about $30,000 to potentially gain $60,000 more." Jennifer leaned forward, clearly rehearsed. "But we don't have $30,000 to invest in renovations, Derek. It makes more sense to sell it as is and use the money for our new house." Our new house. They had already decided everything. Jennifer and Derek had created a complete script where he was just an extra who signed papers when asked. "Here's what I propose," Derek said, sliding a contract across the table. "I'll list the property for $460,000. An aggressive price for a quick sale. Based on my track record, I can close the deal in 2 weeks, 3 at most." Jennifer told me about the financial pressures you're facing. Financial pressures. Jennifer had shared our supposed financial situation with Derek, creating a narrative where we were a young couple desperate for money. A story that justified the quick sale and the profit split she had already planned. "What about the commission?" I asked. "For family, he does 5% instead of the usual 6%. It's his contribution to help you guys move on." 5% of $460,000 was $23,000. A generous commission for Derek, especially considering he was pushing for a below-market sale that would benefit only Jennifer and himself. On Wednesday, Jennifer escalated to outright emotional manipulation. She came home with red eyes, claiming she had been crying at work because our financial situation was causing her too much stress. "Jim, I haven't slept right in weeks," she said, sitting down next to me on the couch. "I lie awake calculating bills, worrying about our future. His parents wouldn't want to see us struggling like this." My parents. Jennifer rarely mentioned my parents when they were alive, treating them with perfunctory politeness during obligatory visits. Now she invoked them as imaginary moral authorities who would support her financial decisions. "They always wanted you to be happy and successful. Selling the house is honoring his memory, not betraying it. It's using the last gift he gave you to build something better." Last gift. As if my parents had died strategically to benefit us financially. The coldness of the observation shocked me, but Jennifer continued, seemingly unaware of how insensitive she sounded. "And think about it, we could finally have children without worrying about money. A big house, financial stability, everything a family needs. Children. That was new territory. Jennifer and I had never seriously discussed having children, mainly because she always claimed that our financial situation didn't allow it. Now, with the prospect of inheritance money, she conveniently discovered a desire for motherhood. Imagine our children growing up in that beautiful house in Brookline, with a yard to play in, better schools. We could give them everything they deserve. Our hypothetical children, financed by my parents' death. The logic was disturbing, but Jennifer presented it as if it were a noble and natural plan. That night, after Jennifer fell asleep, I sat in my parents' office and called Ahmed Hassan, the real estate lawyer in Dubai who had handled the purchase of my father's apartment. It was early morning in Boston, but mid-afternoon in Dubai. "Mr. Jim, how nice to hear your voice again," Ahmed said in impeccable English. "Please accept my condolences on the loss of his father. He was a man of great integrity." "Thank you, Ahmed. I'm calling to confirm the legal status of the apartment." "Of course. Everything is exactly as your father arranged. The property is registered solely in her name, fully paid off. The transfer documents were finalized 6 months before his passing. Legally, you are the sole owner. The apartment in Dubai. My parents had told me about her during a casual visit last fall. My father had done some expert consulting for an oil company that resulted in a substantial bonus, money he had discreetly invested in international real estate. "It's an investment for his future, Jim," my father had said. "Dubai is growing rapidly. In 10 years, that property will be worth twice what we paid for it." At the time, the apartment had cost $800,000. According to Ahmed, recent appraisals estimated its current value at $1,200,000. "Mr. Jim, is there anything specific that concerns you about the property?" "Not exactly a concern, Ahmed. I just want to understand my options." "Well, the apartment is being managed by our company. We have an excellent corporate tenant, an executive at a German technology company. His lease brings in $9,000 a month, which we automatically deposit into the account his father set up. $9,000 a month. $108,000 a year in passive income from a property Jennifer didn't even know existed. Money that had been deposited into an offshore account that only I could access. "Ahmed, I need to meet with you in person. Can I fly to Dubai next week?" "Of course, Mr. Jim. I'd be happy to meet with you and show you the property in person." While Jennifer slept beside me, planning how to spend my parents' inheritance, I quietly arranged an international trip to inspect an asset that represented more money than she could ever imagine. What she didn't know was that his greed was about to reveal something much bigger than a simple family inheritance. And when she discovered the truth, it would be too late to turn back. On Thursday, Jennifer crossed a line I never imagined she would be capable of crossing. I came home from work to find 3 strangers in my living room, a man in a navy blue suit with a clipboard, a woman with an electronic measuring device, and a third guy photographing every room in my parents' house. "Oh, Jim, I'm so glad you're his," Jennifer said from the kitchen, as if it were completely normal to have strangers invading the property. "These are the appraisers Derek recommended. They're doing a technical analysis to optimize our selling strategy." She had made the unilateral decision to allow people into the house without my permission, violating not only my privacy but also my parents' memory. "Jennifer, can we talk in the kitchen?" I said, keeping my voice controlled as I watched the photographer document the bookshelf my father had organized for decades. "Sure, honey," she replied, but didn't move from her position. "He'll be done in 20 minutes. It's just a formality to make sure we don't miss any valuable details." The man in the suit approached with his clipboard. "Sir, I'm Marcus from Pinnacle Property Assessments. Her wife hired us to do a full assessment. We hope to finish today, but we'll need to come back tomorrow to check on some structural issues in the basement." Come back tomorrow. Jennifer had scheduled multiple appraisers without consulting me, treating the property as if it were already his to manage. "Actually, I think that's enough for today," I said firmly. "You can finish what you're doing, and then we'll talk about next steps." Marcus looked at Jennifer, clearly confused about who had the authority to make decisions. Jennifer smiled, but there was irritation in her eyes. "Jim is being very cautious," she explained to the appraisers. "He's still processing the loss of his parents emotionally. But financially, we know we need to be practical." Processing emotionally. Jennifer had created a narrative where he was an unstable widower who needed to be guided by decisions more rational than hers. In front of strangers, she painted him as someone incapable of making adult decisions about his own inheritance. After the appraisers left, Jennifer stood in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed, blocking his way out as if he were a child who needed a serious talk. "Jim, I need to tell you something, and you're going to listen without interrupting me." I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where I had eaten thousands of meals with my parents, and waited. I know he's hurting. I know his death was traumatic and unexpected. But he's sabotaging our future because of feelings we can't afford to have right now. Feelings we couldn't afford to have. As if grief were an expensive hobby that needed to be rationalized. These people told me today that the house could fetch $520,000 if we make a few strategic improvements. $520,000, Jim. That completely changes our life. Jennifer came over and put her hands on his shoulders, using that motherly tone she adopted when she wanted to manipulate him. "Your parents wouldn't want to see us struggling financially when they left us exactly the resources we need to succeed. They wanted you to be happy, prosperous, fulfilled." My parents wanted me to be happy. Jennifer was using his memory as a tool of persuasion, creating imaginary versions of his last wishes that coincidentally aligned with her desires. "And there's something else," she continued, her voice becoming softer, more intimate. "I talked to my gynecologist this week about starting to try for a baby." A baby. Jennifer had never mentioned wanting children during our 3 years of marriage. Now, with the prospect of inheritance money, she conveniently discovered maternal instincts. Imagine, Jim. A new house, financial stability, and a baby. A real family. Everything we've always wanted, finally within our reach. Everything we've always wanted. Jennifer was rewriting our history, creating a narrative where we had both dreamed of these specific goals, when in reality they were exclusively hers. "Jenny, I need more time to think about all this." Her expression changed instantly. The maternal mask disappeared, revealing genuine irritation. "Time? Jim, we don't have time. The real estate market is hot right now. If we wait 6 months, we could lose $50,000 in value. It's simple math." Simple math. Jennifer reduced the sale of my parents' house to a basic financial equation, completely ignoring any emotional or sentimental value. "And another thing, Derek told me that some neighbors are already asking about the property. If we don't act fast, other similar houses will come on the market and we'll have to compete for buyers." Derek had shared information about the neighbors' interest with Jennifer, creating an artificial sense of urgency. They were working together to pressure me using aggressive sales tactics. That night, after Jennifer fell asleep, I made the decision that would change everything. I opened my laptop and bought a ticket to Dubai. Direct flight from Boston, leaving Saturday morning. Jennifer would think I had gone to visit his cousin in Hartford, a simple lie that would give me 3 days to inspect the apartment in person and understand exactly what his financial situation really was. As I typed my information into the airline website, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: control. For the first time since my parents died, I was making a decision based on my needs and curiosities, not on Jennifer's pressures and manipulations. On Friday morning, she left for work with a new briefcase full of real estate contracts that Derek had prepared. Documents ready for my signature, just waiting for me to capitulate under the constant pressure. "Think about what we talked about yesterday," she said, kissing his forehead as if he were a stubborn child. "Think about our future, the baby we could have, the life we could build." The hypothetical baby, financed by my dead parents' money. The logic was disturbing, but Jennifer presented it as if it were natural and inevitable. After she left, I called Ahmed Hassan to confirm our meeting. "Mr. Jim, I have prepared all the documents for our meeting. I have also arranged a visit to the apartment so you can see the property for yourself. I am sure you will be impressed." Impressed. Ahmed didn't know I was dealing with a wife who believed she controlled my financial situation through incomplete information. He had no idea that her call was about to reveal an economic power that would completely change the dynamics of my marriage. That afternoon, I stopped by the bank to check the account my parents had set up for the Dubai apartment income. The manager, a woman named Linda who had known my family for years, greeted me with genuine warmth. "Jim, I'm so sorry for the loss of your parents." He was an exemplary customer. Linda opened the statements on her computer and her face showed surprise. Wow, I didn't know you had a corporate account with us. The monthly deposits of $9,000 have been coming in automatically for 18 months. 18 months. For a year and a half, while Jennifer worried about our credit card debt and complained about our financial situation, I had received more than $160,000 in passive income from a property she didn't know existed. The current balance is $187,000, Linda continued. His parents set it up so that only he has access to this account. A very well-planned private pension fund. A private pension fund. My parents had created a parallel financial system that guaranteed me total economic independence, but they had kept the details completely confidential. They had protected my future autonomy in such a way that I would only discover it after his death. As I drove back home, I reflected on the last few weeks with a new and disturbing clarity. Jennifer wasn't trying to support me during a difficult time. She was exploiting my emotional vulnerability to gain access to resources she assumed were ours but were legally mine alone. Worse, she was using my parents' memory as a tool of manipulation, creating fictional versions of her last wishes that justified her own financial desires. That night, as Jennifer talked about sales schedules and new house plans, I made my final decision. I would go to Dubai. I would personally inspect my property. I would fully understand my real financial situation. And then when I returned, Jennifer would find out exactly who she had been trying to manipulate. What she didn't know was that his greed was about to reveal not just an apartment in Dubai, but a new version of myself she had never encountered before. A version that would no longer accept lies, pressure, or manipulation disguised as care. Saturday, 5:30 a.m. While Jennifer slept soundly beside me, I got up quietly and grabbed the suitcase I had hidden in the basement closet. 3 days' worth of clothes, documents for the apartment in Dubai, and the passport that she didn't even know I had renewed the year before. I left a note on the kitchen table. I've gone to visit my cousin Steve in Hartford. I need some time to think about everything. I'll be back Tuesday night. Cousin Steve really existed, and he really lived in Hartford. If Jennifer decided to check my story, she would find confirmation of my presence in the area, just not specifically at his house. I had learned from my parents that the best lies always contained elements of truth. The flight from Boston to Dubai took 14 hours, enough time for me to fully process the magnitude of what I was about to discover. As the plane crossed the Atlantic, I reflected on every conversation I had had with Jennifer over the past few weeks, every argument she had used, every document Derek had prepared. Ahmed Hassan was waiting for me at the airport with a warm smile and a discreet sign with my name on it. He was an elegant man in his 50s, wearing an impeccably tailored suit and speaking English with a refined British accent. "Mr. Jim, welcome to Dubai. How was her trip?" "Long but productive," I replied as he drove me to the parking lot. I had a lot of time to think. During the drive through the city center, Ahmed showed me the local landmarks, explaining the explosive economic growth Dubai had experienced over the past decade. Futuristic skyscrapers rose like monuments to progress, and the streets pulsed with cosmopolitan energy. His father was very wise to invest here when he did, Ahmed commented as we navigated the traffic. Real estate prices have tripled since he bought the property. While Jennifer was pushing to sell my parents' house for $500,000, I owned an international property worth almost 5 times as much. "Ahmed, I need to understand my complete legal situation. Documentation, taxes, options for selling or maintaining it." "Of course. I've prepared a complete dossier for our meeting. But first, let me show you the property in person." The building was impressive. A 40-story glass and steel tower located in Dubai's most exclusive financial district. The lobby had Italian marble, crystal chandeliers, and a concierge who greeted us in 5 different languages. 32nd floor, Ahmed said in the elevator. Panoramic view of the city and the Persian Gulf. When the elevator doors opened directly into the apartment, a private penthouse with an exclusive elevator, my breath literally stopped. The space was extraordinary. 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a double-height living room, a gourmet kitchen with state-of-the-art appliances, and a balcony that offered a 360-degree view of the city. Italian designer furniture, contemporary art on the walls, and finishes that exuded understated luxury. "The current tenant is Klaus Richter, regional CEO of Siemens," Ahmed explained as we walked through the rooms. 3-year lease, automatically renewable. He pays $9,000 a month, always on time, and takes care of the property as if it were his or her own. $9,000 a month in a city where I pay no income tax on rental income for non-residents. $108,000 a year net, automatically deposited into an account that only I controlled. As I explored the apartment, my cell phone vibrated with a message from Jennifer. "I hope you're enjoying his time with Steve. Derek Cold. There's a very interested buyer for the house. We can close the deal on Monday if his return is ready to sign the papers. His father has arranged an investor visa. With the property he owns, he can apply for permanent residency. Dubai offers excellent professional opportunities for skilled mechanics, especially in the aeronautical industry. Permanent residency." While Jennifer was planning to convince him to sell everything and move into a house financed by my parents' inheritance, he was discovering that he had the option of building a completely new life on the other side of the world. That night, staying at a 5-star hotel that Ahmed had booked, I called the accounting firm in Boston that my parents had always used. Linda, the manager, answered even though it was Sunday in the United States. "Jim, what a surprise. How are you handling everything?" "Linda, I need a complete audit of the finances my parents left me. Everything. Accounts, investments, properties, life insurance." There was a pause. "Jim, didn't you receive the report we prepared? We sent it to his address 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks ago. Just when Jennifer started her campaign to sell the house quickly. "I didn't receive anything, Linda." "That's strange. I'll resend everything by email right now. But I can tell you that his parents left him a substantial estate. Much more than I imagine he knows. Much more than I knew." While Jennifer was creating scenarios of financial hardship to justify quick sales, my parents had built an investment portfolio that guaranteed his total financial independence. On Monday morning, I met Ahmed at his office to review all the legal documentation. Property deeds, updated appraisal reports, value projections for the next 5 years, and investment diversification options. If this story of unexpected financial discoveries is resonating with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see how this revelation will completely change the game. "Mr. Jim, may I make a personal observation?" "Of course, Ahmed. Your father told me about her during our last conversation. He was concerned about certain behaviors he had observed. He said you were too good a man to notice certain manipulations." "Certain manipulations." My father had detected aspects of Jennifer's character that I, being very close to her emotionally, couldn't see clearly. "Did he mention anything specific?" "He said she showed a disproportionate interest in family finances, always asking about investments and property. Your father believed she had married you for reasons that weren't just love." "Reasons other than love." Ahmed's words echoed in my mind as I mentally reviewed the 3 years of my marriage to Jennifer. The moments when she showed affection coincided exactly with periods when our financial situation improved. That afternoon, as I walked through the streets of Dubai, I made the decision that would change everything. I would not return to Boston as the same person who had left. I would no longer accept manipulation disguised as care. And I definitely would not sell my parents' house to finance the dreams of a woman who had revealed her true nature at a time when I thought I was most vulnerable. Jennifer expected a confused and emotionally dependent widower. She would find a man who had discovered exactly who he was, what he had, and what he deserved. The real revenge would not be to confront her directly, but to allow her to reveal her greed completely before she realized she had bet on the wrong horse. And when that happened, it would be too late for any negotiation. Tuesday, 6:45 p.m. I parked in front of our house in Boston at exactly the time I had promised. Jennifer was waiting for me on the porch with Derek at her side, both holding briefcases that clearly contained documents for me to sign. "Jim, I'm so glad you're back," Jennifer shouted, running down the steps with that forced smile she wore when she was nervous. "How was his trip with Steve?" "Enlightening," I replied, grabbing my briefcase from the trunk. "I learned things about myself I never imagined." Derek approached with her leather briefcase and that overly firm handshake. "Jim man, I have great news. The buyer has increased the offer to $540,000. $540,000. He wants to close tomorrow if you sign today." $540,000. $40,000 more than the original offer, probably because Derek had created an artificial sense of urgency by saying other buyers were interested. "That's wonderful," I said calmly. Let's talk inside. As we walked into the living room, I watched Jennifer and Derek exchange glances of relief. He interpreted my calmness as resignation, assuming that 3 days away from home had made me more receptive to her pressures. Jennifer served coffee while Derek spread contracts across the dining room table. Sales documents, transfer of ownership, division of assets, and even pre-approvals for the mortgage on the new house in Brookline. "Jim, we've prepared everything to make the process easier," Jennifer said, sitting down next to me. "Derek even got a special interest rate from his bank. We can move into our new house in 6 weeks." Our new house. Financed entirely by the sale of my parents' property, with Jennifer taking full control of future financial decisions. "Jenny, before you sign anything, I need to show you some documents I found in my parents' office." I pulled the papers Ahmed had prepared in Dubai out of my briefcase. Updated appraisals, rental agreements, bank statements, and photographs of the apartment revealed a world completely different from the picture of hardship Jennifer had painted. "What's this?" she asked, frowning at the documents in Arabic with official English translations. "It's a property my parents bought in Dubai. A 3-bedroom apartment in the financial district, paid off in full, valued at $2,400,000. The silence in the room was absolute. Derek stopped shuffling through his papers. Jennifer stood with her mouth half open, processing numbers that completely destroyed the financial narrative she had constructed. $2,400,000? Derek repeated, her voice losing all its previous confidence. "And there's more," I continued, pulling out the bank statements for the rental account. "The apartment is rented for $9,000 a month. For 18 months, while you were worrying about our credit card debt, I received $187,000 in passive income." Jennifer took the documents with trembling hands. "Jim, why didn't you tell me about this?" "Because my parents instructed me to maintain discretion until I was emotionally ready to make important decisions. They wanted me to have time to process her loss before dealing with complex financial issues." It was a partial lie. My parents had mentioned maintaining discretion, but not specifically about hiding things from Jennifer. They just wanted me to be cautious with important decisions after his death. Derek cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Jim, this is unexpected. Maybe we should reconsider our strategy." "What strategy, Derek?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "The strategy of convincing himself to sell a $400,000 property when he has international assets worth 10 times that?" Jennifer stood up abruptly. "Jim, you can't be thinking clearly. Even if those documents are true, it still makes sense to sell the house. We can use the money to invest, diversify." Diversify. Jennifer was trying to adapt to the new reality, but still assuming he would have access to the resources to make investment decisions. "Jenny, I need to ask you a question. Why didn't you ever mention that you were paying appraisers to come here without my permission?" She paused, clearly not expecting me to know about this. "She wanted to surprise you with all the information. To make the process easier." "Easier for whom? For me, or for Derek to get a $27,000 commission on the sale?" Derek leaned back in his chair, realizing that I had calculated exactly how much he would earn from the transaction. "Jim, this isn't about commission. It's about helping you maximize the value of the property." "And how exactly did you gain access to her parents' financial information to create that report about her imaginary debts?" Another silence. Jennifer and Derek exchanged glances, both realizing that I had questioned specific details that exposed the inconsistencies in her stories. "Derek mentioned doing routine checks," Jennifer said hesitantly. "Routine checks on deceased people, without legal authorization, to create fictitious financial reports that would justify quick sales." I grabbed my phone and showed them the email Linda, the bank manager, had sent me. "This is my parents' actual financial report. No debts, substantial investments, and a net worth that guaranteed total financial security for our family." Jennifer read the email over my shoulder, her expression changing from confusion to something much colder. "Jim, I don't understand why you're acting like I'm her enemy. We're married. We're a team. If you have all these resources, that's wonderful for us." For us. Even when confronted with evidence of his manipulations, Jennifer immediately assumed access to the resources she had just discovered. "Jenny, in 3 years of marriage, How many times have you shown genuine interest in my emotional life? What do you mean? How many times have you asked about my feelings, my dreams, my fears, without connecting the conversation to money or material benefits? Jennifer was silent, searching for examples she clearly couldn't find. Derek stood up, putting away his documents. Maybe I should let you two talk in private. Actually, Derek, I want you to stay, she said, stopping him from leaving. I want you to hear this too. I took a deep breath and looked Jennifer straight in the eye. 3 days ago, you said that my parents wouldn't want to see us struggling financially. But my parents left me enough resources to eliminate any financial worries for the rest of my life. Jennifer tried to speak, but I continued. They also left me a letter. Another strategic lie. A letter where they expressed specific concerns about people who might try to take advantage of my grief to gain access to the resources he had accumulated for me. Jennifer's face went pale. Jim, you can't be suggesting that I'm saying exactly that. I'm saying that 2 months after burying my parents, instead of supporting me emotionally, you orchestrated a systematic campaign to convince me to make financial decisions that would exclusively benefit you and Derek. Derek tried to leave again, but I blocked the door. No, Derek. You actively participated in this manipulation. You deserve to hear how it ends. I turned back to Jennifer, who was now clearly distraught. Jenny, answer me one question honestly. If I hadn't discovered the apartment in Dubai, if I had signed those papers today, how long would it have taken you to suggest divorce once the money from the sale was safely in the account? The question left her speechless. Because we both knew the answer. The apartment in Dubai has an interesting clause, I continued, taking another document out of his briefcase. As property acquired before the marriage and registered solely in his name, it is not legally marital property. Neither is the income it generated. Jennifer finally understood the magnitude of what was happening. Not only had she lost access to the resources she thought she controlled, but she discovered that he had independent resources she never imagined. Jim, we can work this out, she said, her voice now desperate. We can start over. Be honest with each other. I shook my head slowly. Jenny, honesty isn't something you turn on and off when it's convenient. I picked up the keys to my parents' house from the table and put them in my pocket. The house isn't going to be sold. Derek, his services are no longer needed. And Jennifer. I paused, watching the woman who had tried to exploit my emotional vulnerability to finance his own dreams. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to the bank to close our joint accounts. I'm also going to a lawyer to start divorce proceedings. What she didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Dubai had offered me much more than an apartment. It had offered me a completely new life. 6 months later, I was sitting on the balcony of my apartment in Dubai, watching the sunset paint the Persian Gulf gold. Ahmed had helped me get a work visa, and now I managed equipment maintenance for an international aviation company. Jennifer tried to contest the divorce, claiming property rights in Dubai. His lawyers quickly discovered that property acquired before marriage, registered individually, and financed with premarital family funds does not constitute marital property in Massachusetts. Derek lost his real estate license when authorities investigated his fraudulent financial verification practices. Apparently, creating false reports about deceased individuals to pressure real estate sales is not well regarded by the regulatory board. The last I heard from Jennifer, she was living with Derek in a 1-bedroom apartment in Quincy, both working part-time jobs to pay the legal fees from her failed divorce. As for me, the rental income allowed me to live comfortably while I built a new career. I met Layla, a Lebanese architect who loves me for the man I am, not for what I have. She didn't even ask about his financial situation until our 6th date. My parents' house in Boston is now home to a young family with 2 small children. I sold it to them for a fair price, not the inflated price that Derek had proposed. Seeing children playing in the yard where I grew up brought a peace that money could never buy. The experience taught me that some people come into our lives expecting to find resources to exploit, not a heart to love. They reveal her true nature in the moments when they think we are most vulnerable. My parents protected my autonomy even after their death. Jennifer tried to destroy it while I mourned her losses. The difference between these two attitudes told me everything I needed to know about who deserved my future. If this story of liberation and new beginnings touched you, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories of people who turned betrayal into opportunity. Today, I wake up every day in a city where no one knows my story, surrounded by people who value him for his present, not for his past. Jennifer wanted his money to buy a new house. I ended up using his money to buy a new life. And that was definitely the best deal he ever made.